wanted to start a series going over PI, mainly just tracking profit and everything and setups and all that stuff. So this at the beginning of this series, we're going to be starting off in high sec. We're going to essentially be setting up PI on one character, and we're going to be tracking yield and profit and everything. And I'll probably expand this to other areas of space in the future, but really the main focus is to really go into a detailed kind of day-to-day operation overview for maintaining PI, so everybody can get kind of a better idea on how I kind of operate things. Now, I've already set up one planet on this tune, and this was really to proof of concept before we kind of kicked this series off. This series will be accompanied by this spreadsheet that I've made, and this is basically just a tracker. So we have the customs office tax in here, we have our sales tax, and we have our broker's fee. Now we're going to be simulating profits based on getting items out of exporting items off of planets and then putting them to sell orders. Now that doesn't mean it's necessarily we're going to be selling toxic metals, but this gives us an idea of what our net day value would be here. It also allows us to kind of min-max a little bit and figure out kind of how many factories we can run versus, you know, our extraction rate and stuff like that. So just kind of to start off with this lava planet, we have toxic metals being produced. We require about 42,000 input an hour for 7 factories, and then we get about 280 per hour, and then our output per day would be over around 6,720. And then our value, now this value is actually being pulled from Janus with the API, and then this is our value net per unit after we account for broker fee, sales tax, and customs office tax, and this would be our value per day. And we can kind of just fill this out for all 6 planets. So for this first episode, we're just going to kind of go over the setup and kind of how I have this lava planet set up, and then each subsequent episode we will be setting up another planet until we hit all 6, and then basically we just looking at yield every day and making adjustments, and I'll kind of show when we need to do adjustments, how I kind of facilitate that. Now, high sec has a lot lower density than null sec, wormhole space, and things like that, so I do typically run 2 extractors. So the way that this planet is set up, and I've intentionally let these extractors expire after 24 hours. So I'm running 10 heads on this one, and then we have a second extractor unit, which is just running like 3. And this is just give us a little bit of overhead to facilitate. Now we have 7 factories here, like you saw in the spreadsheet, and so we know we are required about 42,000 an hour. And I always go after the average P0 we get per hour on the extractors to figure out if we can keep the factories running. And that's what you want, especially in high sec. You want to keep those factories running, and my recommendation is always be producing a little bit more P0 than what you need. That allows you a little bit extra runtime on those factories after the extractor ends, in case you're not online the second that they kind of go out. So normally on a day where I'm logging in, I need to reset extractors, I'll come in here, and then I'll just go in here, and this is all kind of set up already, but we'll start the extractor. I'm going to set it for 1 day, and this shows about 28,000 per hour average, but we're going to go and kind of restart that, and you can kind of look at the scan and all of that and make sure we're kind of still in a good area. This average hour could change after we actually start this extractor as well too, so we want to kind of go back in there after we submit it. So we got about 27 right there, and so our target is about 42. So we're going to hope we can do a little bit better on this extractor for the hour. You see this is showing about 8, but we're actually going to move these heads down a little bit. We got one up here, move that one down. And then let's see where's our other ones. They're all right here. So we got 8 on there, so you're going to put us at about 30. Now what this means is we're going to be basically looking at, now we're going to add all this up. So about 27. And then over here on this one, we got about 8 on that one. So let's go and start this extraction actually and get our final number. So about 6. So we're looking at about 32, 33,000 an hour. So now if we go back to our spreadsheet here, we know we got about 32 or so now, or about 32, 33 an hour. We drop this down to 6. So we know we're going to be able to facilitate about 5 factories here. So at least for this run, we can actually get rid of these 2 factories and we can run 5, and then we can actually go back in here, and once we actually are able to stop this extraction, we're going to add a couple more heads to this one. That way we can actually get a little bit more. And that's the thing about high sec, is you're going to have to kind of move this stuff around a little bit, and you don't have to necessarily like min-max like this all the time. We probably would be fine keeping those 7 and just kind of letting it run. But this is how I would actually facilitate kind of a micro adjustment here. So we're going to stop this extraction. We're going to add one more head, and that puts us about 10, and then we can add another one as well. So now we're going to move these 2 heads into position. And what this is going to do is it's going to allow us to be producing more than what we actually need for the 5, which will allow these factories to run for more than just 24 hours, which it will give us a guaranteed output of 4,800 and everything to facilitate that. If you're running multiple characters at scale, then you don't necessarily have to do this for every single planet. You just kind of let it run. I would say for high sec, a good amount is probably 5 factories. If you can have 5 factories run per planet, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that's a really good kind of setup. I do recommend running 2 extractors though in high sec, just because density yield is so much lower. And so running those factories full time is the best thing to do. But that is pretty much in a nutshell how I kind of operate there. So we're starting off with, we got about 2.3 million here. Setting up this first planet was around 6 million, 7 million. So what we'll do is between now and the next episode, we will just let this run, and we will just set up the second planet next episode. The other thing too here is we don't necessarily have to go out and pick up this stuff every single day. I usually let the launch pad here fill up all the way, and then I'll move it to the actual customs office side, and so I might only be picking up from a planet once a week or so. That's why I think PI is really great in terms of passive. You can do a lot from just the station, and you don't really have to take your ship out and go pick up stuff. We'll probably be getting one of the new ships to kind of run with this, probably the Deluge, so we can actually run out and pick up all we can pick up all 6 P1s once a week and have plenty of space on that and everything. But it's kind of the goal here. And obviously, like on this, if the customs office tax gets reduced, then it'll reflect in our profits as well. Now, 10% is pretty much standard. I mean, you have like you have a Concord tax on all the POCOs in high sec. Also, you have corporation, whoever owns that customs office, is going to have it on there too. I run the actual skill to reduce that that tax in high sec at least, which is called custom code expertise. So normally we would be paying about 15% on these customs offices, but with that skill we get down to 10. Now obviously if you're in nullsec, you could pay anywhere between 2% or less, depending on what your alliance is set up for and everything. I don't mind actually doing PI in high sec even at a 10% tax rate, because, or an export tax, because it saves on logistics. And in nullsec you can pay basically no operations tax, export tax, but then you do pay quite a bit to get that stuff exported if you can't sell it locally. So I consider this 10% like a convenience fee, which is not going to stop us at all for our profits. Now what's our overall goal for this character? We're going to try to shoot for like 10-15 mil a day. We accompany this with mining and with project discovery to make a decent amount with very low effort. So as the series progresses, you'll be able to see kind of like how I facilitate that. we're just kind of starting off here. We adjusted this down from 7 to 5 today, but chances are we'll probably leave factories in place, and usually what I do is I wait for density on planets to kind of come back around. So like heavy metals here, they're still kind of in zone for us, so we can kind of run this little area until it's kind of all gone, and then this area will potentially kind of size up a little bit more. There are times where you might have to move your setup completely, and if that's the case, that's usually, I only really move things if I'm getting really bad yield, or if I'm not in white at all for like, you know, a day or so, or a day or two, then I'll, you know, relocate if I find a better spot. But I try to avoid that at all cost and everything. But that'll all be illustrated when we'll cross those bridges when we kind of get to them. But this is going to be episode 1 for this series, and so tomorrow we'll come back, we'll grab whatever's in this planet here, and we'll set up the barren planet for reactive metals. So I really just want to kind of get this series kind of off the ground, show you the intent and kind of the setup and kind of what to expect